Suddenly one day scientists realized that a great hulking tree that every Incan and his Andean dog had known about forever was an unknown species. Or, more accurately perhaps, unnoticed. Close-up of the Incadendron, newly recognized by science. William Farfanrio's Incadendron S area is not exactly rare. But this canopy tree just lives off the beaten track, in a narrow band of altitude between 1,000 to 2,400 meters elevation, in the mountain cloud forest of Ecuador and Peru. It was finally noticed by researchers from the Smithsonian and Wake Forest University, who described the new genus in Phytochees. It is true that Incadendron's preferable habitat range is rather remote, but the Andes are not exactly unexplored. How could a tree that can easily reach 100 feet in height, with a broad canopy, and some weird characteristics including slime-secreting sheathing stipules, small leaf-like appendages at the base of the leaf stalk, remain unknown all this time because the Andean cloud forest remains understudied and undercollected, a fact that applies in particular to the elevation range where Incadendron thrives, explains grad student William Farfanarios of Wake Forest University, which is located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Actually, it was noticed well over a decade ago, but conclusions took their time, elaborates Kenneth Werdak, research scientist and associate curator at the Smithsonian. The Andean mountain cloud forest, habitat of the 100-foot Incadendron tree. William Farfanrios. The tree appears to have been discovered in 2003. We know of no earlier collections and its discovery coincides with new botanical exploration of several remote regions, Werdak told Haaretz. When a new species is discovered in the wild, it takes time to complete its analysis and classification, and for the experts to figure out what to do, determine if it really is new and how to classify it. Also, scientific research articles don't get written, peer-reviewed and published overnight, the researcher points out. Lurking in plain sight, a close-up showing the leaves of the Incadendron. Wake Forest University. When it comes to groups of organisms that almost nobody cares about that have few experts like Andean trees, as opposed to Asian tigers, for instance, the lag time can be decades, Werdak explains. A new bird, a mammal, usually gets recognized and worked on very quickly, but an obscure tropical plant, not so fast. So the Incadendron was noticed in 2003, until which time, the tree had simply been misidentified, or samples sat languishing in a backlog awaiting expert identification, Werdak explains. It being a rare tree globally speaking living in clouds on Andean mountains, more samples were needed for the experts to weigh and with those, and, finally, genetic evidence, the truth became clear. To be fair to the botanists of the world, one doesn't often find oneself tricking the Inca path in Peru, the Troca Union, where Incadendron is common. The cloud forest is a very wet, cool place that is even more challenging than a typical tropical rainforest, which is usually less wet and hotter, Werdak explains. This tree would probably not do well in other conditions. Anybody who has tried to nurture a carnivorous plant from a cloud forest can tell you, he points out. Suicide palms and ants. Another weird thing too incognoscenti is that trees unknown to science, or unnoticed by science, are not that unusual. Another view of the Andean habitat where the Incadendron thrives. William Farfanrios. One of the most sensational recent new trees of the past decade, also a new genus and species, is a giant palm in a remote part of Madagascar, Tahina spectabilis, that can be seen from Google Earth space images. The palm dies after flowering, hence the term suicidal, but many plants do that, even parsley, which added to the public imagination, Werdak helpfully shares. Tahina spectabilis, a gigantic palm tree that went unnoticed in Madagascar until very recently. John Dransfield. Indeed, it is impressively enormous, in fact it's the biggest fan palm on the island nation, according to its discoverers. And like Incadendron, part of the reason it remained unknown is that it grows off the Madagascarian beaten track. Another new tree described in 2015 is Guatteria cuscoensis, which was collected in 2006 in the Manu National Park, at 1,650 meters of elevation. Like Incadendron, it took years to realize it was an unknown species, says Farfanrios. The woody of the Incadendron. Jason Houston. Not only trees but animals keep getting discovered, though ironically, many new discoveries are already on the brink of extinction. Some of the more notable ones include the white-cheeked macaque of southeastern Tibet, which scientists realized was not the same as other macaques mainly due to its unusual junk. To wit, it has a round-head penis, while the others have arrow-shaped penises, and also sported a dark, hairy scrotum. The others had white testicles. Less adorable are the 33 species of ants discovered thriving on the rainforest floor of Central America and in the Caribbean. Even Little Israel has its share of suddenly discovered species, including ones trapped in caves for thousands or even millions of years, and a species of garlic. However, the ultimate unknown species has to be the leopard frog discovered living in the heart of New York City in 2014. It proved not to be like other leopard frogs living in New York City, but in that case science has no excuse. None. The long and short of it is that precious few people care about the minutiae of tree classification, and would know or care whether or not a tree was known or not. Also, the botany of the cloud forests of the eastern Andes has not been vastly studied, points out Miles Zillman of Wake Forest. And thus a towering tree looming 100 feet over your head with weird woody fruit went unnoticed and uncared for all these years, and there may be many more.